Hey, Little Rock, my name is Jamie Taylor, and I'm host of the Block Talk podcast, where we add value to your block of time by showcasing people here in Central Arkansas that add value to our community. About 4 years ago, we took a really big, brave step out and interviewed all of the candidates that were running for mayor of our great city. 4 years later, we've been asked to do the same thing, and it's been so exciting at such a poignant time to have conversations with each of your candidates for mayor. So I made this quick disclaimer before every episode of the podcast to remind you that I, as a host, am trying to do my best to bring value to you. And I thought, what better way than to have an open conversation with each of these candidates and allow them to express their views and opinions on the issues that are most important to you as voters. So that being said, I had an open conversation with each of these candidates and asked them the same set of questions, tried to allot them the same amount of time, and hope that you will enjoy the opportunity to get to know them and then to get out and vote. Remember, the most important thing you can do as a resident of the city of Little Rock is to pay attention and to take care of each other. Thank you for tuning in to the Block Talk podcast mayoral series, and we hope you can grab your coffee, get jacked up. It's time to get underway. All right, Little Rock, grab your coffee, get jacked up. It's time for another episode of the Block Talk. I'm here, Jamie Taylor, your host, with Mr. Steve Landers. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm very excited to meet with you. We've only met one time before this, and so this is exciting to have a full-on conversation the next time on camera and video.
On camera and video.
No pressure.
Yeah.
So real quickly, just tell me a little bit about yourself and what made you want to run for mayor of Little Rock.
Well, Jamie, I'm a businessman of many, many years, ran successful business all across the country, bought and sold 70 auto dealerships, and I bought them when they were broken. You know, when people were losing their dealerships, I would go buy them to get them out of them, and then we'd turn them around. And we'd turn them around and make bad dealerships good dealerships. And then we'd sell out and go to another. But I built 3 of those auto groups doing that. And happily retired 4 or 5 years ago, and lost a son a couple of years ago, and he has 2 little kids, 3 at that time, 3 and 6, and our city's not safe. And I would see the gunfire and the violence going on in our city, and so I said, I can help this, I can do this, and because I've employed thousands of people. And all over the country, and I know what it is to employ people. I know what it is to keep morale up in our city, which is very low right now, and I know what it is to build teams. I've been a leader, and I've built teams. You know, I put good people in good spots. You know, and that's the key to it. It's all about people. Get the right people in the right spots, and I think I can do that better than anyone.
Well, I'm excited to talk more about all these different things because it's a big, huge difference from going from entrepreneurship into politics, business ownership into politics. And so that has been an interesting thing that's been reported a lot across the news is, hey, he's a businessman, not a politician. And so it's been sort of an interesting thing to hear about. Now, I've experienced owning and selling businesses as well, but not as much. And so I look at a city like Little Rock and I see where we struggle a little bit with our population growth. We're a capital city. We have about 200,000 residents now, or 203, whatever the census is. But we're looking to grow and rapidly, right? But not so rapidly that it's not strategic. How would you say the best way is to grow our population? And with respect to Little Rock as a city, more so than the state at large?
Jamie, you know, it's difficult to grow because people don't even want to come here to go to a movie, to go eat, to go out at night because they feel unsafe. We must get our city safe again. You know, you're not going to stop all the violence, all the homicides, but until we get that under control, we're very short of patrolmen. We don't need patrolmen to harass people. We don't need patrolmen to do anything other than be visible in the high crime areas. And we're going to do data-driven policing. You know, where it's bad, we're having a lot of problems. Like a couple of months back, it was homicides on the 12th Street area were up 133%. 133%. And so that's an area that needs more visibility of patrolmen. But when we don't have enough patrolmen I had a person call me this week, said I called 911 the other night. Somebody was breaking in his house. And by the time they got there, everybody was gone. They were gone and everything else. And the patrolman apologized to the man. He said, look, we only have 6 patrolmen patrolling the whole city of Little Rock right now. So when you're that under manned. There's an issue. We gotta get that back. We got to get patrolmen to at least be visible and patrol our city and protect our individuals.
Well, and I have some questions around the police issue here in just a couple minutes, but
Okay.
as it relates to the police, it's an interesting subject. I don't know if we've talked about this in passing prior, but there's an estimated 8,000 vacant lots in the city of Little Rock, as well as uninhabited homes. So places that people are not living, but the homes are in disheveled condition. Those issues create a lot of some of those crimes that you're talking about, but also that population growth can't happen if we're not building on those vacant lots. And so one of my questions is, with respect to being a businessman and sort of trying to fix something that's broken, what would your administration's plan be as it relates to the development and infill development in Little Rock correlating with those 8,000 vacant lots?
A lot of those lots, Jamie, we get back for delinquent taxes, have hardly nothing in those lots. I would be prepared to give some of those lots to builders to build affordable housing on for the people. Affordable housing could be anywhere from 1,000 square foot, 1,200 square foot house to 2,000 square foot house. But I will get different developers, and we'll look at plans to try to revitalize the broken lots in our city. You go down within 2 blocks of code enforcement right now, and it looks like a third world country as far as the trash and the debris and the activities going on there. And we have code enforcement 2 blocks from them. I'm not saying get on everybody for not for mowing their grass, but we have businesses down there that have trash packed up, stacked up knee high, and there's refrigerators out in the yard. There's cars on blocks. That's against code.
Well, and you bring up a good point, though. So code enforcement, this is something I'm very familiar with just from having been in real estate and understanding that property owners are oftentimes going to rent their property to people, and then those renters are going to be the ones who are dealing with code enforcement when they come out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple issues here as relates to how well the code enforcement officers are able to communicate and get involved with their community, but then also what standard are they held to? Is it different per jurisdiction? Should code enforcement do the same thing across all areas of the city? What suggestions or comments do you have as it relates to our code enforcement and their involvement and engagement with our community?
Well, the code enforcement needs to be all over our city. We need to have the same codes for everyone. And, I always go back to what my dad said. It never costs anything to be clean. It really doesn't. He said, when I was a little boy, he said, hey, if you have to go to the river and take a bath, it costs nothing to be clean.
I was about to say in my mind, too, my mind just went like, well, it costs something to look nice.
Right.
But.
Yeah. But to be clean, you can go down the river and take a bath with a bar of soap. And so it costs nothing to pick up trash. I've picked it up for 50 years in my businesses. I would go out and pick it up in the morning when I got to work because I want our place to be clean and to look good. And business people need to have that same mentality. I want every business to be successful because I'm pro-business. I want businesses in our city, and no one that's down there now can bring and attract jobs any better than I can, because I've dealt with these big businesses and been to see them and sit down with them, and along with our chamber, we have a great chamber.
Yeah,
we have a
I
great
just
chamber.
came from a chamber-sponsored event.
We have
it
a
was
great
great.
chamber. We have a great chamber, but we don't have a lot of a working relationship with the city and our chamber. They have a relationship, but it's not really good. We need to go out to these people, but very first, you got to have a product to sell when you go to a business.
Right.
The product is the city of Little Rock.
Right.
In 2013, Kiplinger said Little Rock was the number one place to live. Little Rock, one of the number one places to live. That sign's still up going in all around town. Kiplinger's number one place to live is up when you come into Little Rock. But it's not, we're number one now, but it's not in number one place to live. We're number one in violent crime per capital cities in the country. And so 99% of the cities are better than Little Rock. 99% of the cities are better than Little Rock as far as their crime and violent crime and homicides and stuff. I mean, we've got to make it safe. We got to make it where people don't mind their kids playing in the yard. The University of California did a study on, they said, violent crime will reduce 10 to 12% if you keep your yards cut, the trash up, and, just a clean neighborhood.
Well, it looks like people live there and like they care. That's one of the big things that I think, I do see certain areas of our city just from personal experience. And I feel like it's okay to talk about is just that I've worked in real estate. I've seen specific areas of our city that get less attention than specific other areas. And the reason that bothers me is because like what you're talking about, Little Rock is a microcosm of the United States. It's this huge mix of all these different people from all these different places. And in an effort to become unified as a city, we have to recognize that the same treatment of code enforcement rules in West Little Rock are the same ones that exist in Southwest Little Rock. So how do we unify a city like this where we're standing now? What is your plan to try to get that unification across the board?
Well, our cities struggle with being unified lately. I've been to every association meeting. I've been to listened to all the people around the city. They all want the white, the black, the Hispanic, all want the same thing. They want safe neighborhoods. They want clean neighborhoods. They want their kids to be able to go out in the yard. They want to walk their dog around the block at night, and people are afraid to do that now. And so we've got to get a safe city first. That's where it starts. And it can be done, and we're going to do it.
So let's say you have a magic wand, and that is actually one of my written questions, which people laugh like, Jamie, you really wrote that down. But if you had a magic wand and you could just overnight change one law, one rule, one code underneath, the city, you could just pick one out of there and fix it and say, I'm going to change this law or add to this law or remove this law to enforce a better opportunity for unification, or maybe it's code enforcement. If you could just open up the book of law in the city of Little Rock and change or add or remove anything, what would be the rule?
Jamie, that would be a tough one because there's so many I'd like to change.
Yeah, I kind of thought that.
So I'd think I'd sit here.
We won't hold you to the only one, but.
Right. My main thing, my job one will be get in a safe city. Just have a safe city for everyone. I've seen 7-year-old kids get shot and killed. I've seen pregnant women get shot and the babies die. I've seen elderly people get shot. And when I say that, I said this wrong there because I said this other day. We've seen, let me say that, okay? We've seen. City, yeah. I haven't seen it, but we've seen that. And, these, it's nobody wants to come to Little Rock. You talk to why we've lost so much population to Benton, Bryant, Conway, Cabot, everybody around us is taking population. If you don't believe that, go out on the interstate tonight at about 4:30, and you'll see the amount of people that's going from back home to their homes and how they're doing it.
Well, and it's interesting too, because as a city that actually has quite a few big infrastructure projects going on around our freeways, we've never historically had that bad of traffic, but you've noticed that traffic is increasing quite a bit lately. And I'm starting to be like, I'm from California. I don't want that to happen here. Right. So you guys can move and develop to our city, but let's make sure we deal with the infrastructure.
I want to tell you too, Jamie, I have no political aspirations. I don't want to be anything else. I'm not a politician. If you want a politician, I'm not your guy. But if you want somebody to go to work every day, which I will, I've been doing it for the last 12 months running in this election. But if you go to work, I will be that guy. I will worry about infrastructure. I'll worry about the things I can do with schools. Mayor can't do a lot with schools, but I will worry about the school. The community centers right now are underfunded because our current mayor did not budget properly for the community centers. We get $37 or $8 million from the government, and it's normally spent before we get it, committed before we get it. And we got to be wise with the money that we get. We got to spend our dollars wisely and be efficient. Be efficient with those things. I had to do that because I signed my own payroll checks for 50 years to people, so I know what being efficient is. And I know what looking for the deals and stuff. If you want deals, that's all I've ever done is done deals. So
yeah, I'm getting ready to trade this 4Runner to you.
Absolutely. We'd love to have it.
I bet I'd make a deal.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that, I have been told recently, or at least have experienced over the past few years with respect to commercial development. I'm going to come in your city and I'm going to develop. So it doesn't matter if I'm coming from California or I live down the street. If I want to come into Little Rock and work on a commercial development or flip a house over, what I've heard is that there's been some difficulty running up against that with the city and getting some permitting and all of that. And so when you talk about businesses and how to restructure or organize a city similarly to a business, where does that fall in line with respect to development and permitting? Like, do you feel that our city's doing an effective job of that at present? And if not, what would you do?
No, I don't. I don't feel like we're doing a good job with it. We have too many hoops to jump through. I mean, it's just jump through this hoop, jump through this hoop, jump through this hoop, and sometimes a developer or a sale will be worked on for a year before it gets to the city, and the city causes so many difficulties that they just say we'll go somewhere else. You know what I mean? This is not what we want to do, and that's tax dollars we're sending somewhere else because those people that come in here, will be tax dollars for our city.
How do we get them to effectively develop and care about us as a city when it comes to, let's say I've got a guy that moved here, and I've mentioned this on the other with your other candidates that are running as well. I've mentioned a story where I had a guy move here from Boston who was very interested in investing in our city, but he was very concerned about crime and education because, from an investment dollar standpoint, he was concerned the future of Little Rock wouldn't add appreciation to the value of his property. Having as much knowledge as I do in that field, I spoke with him about, well, if you move here and you become ingrained in the community and you become part of it, you'll see what I see, the full potential of Little Rock and the ability to invest in property here, improve it to the level in which it can be more valuable, and then either resell it or operate within it. But the conditions of that conversation happened to be around him relocating and moving to Little Rock, because I didn't believe any investor could come here and truly invest themselves in our community with their dollars if they weren't going to do it with their time. And that's, of course, just from my personal experience. Do you feel the same about that with respect to outside money needing to have an inside reason to invest in Little Rock? Or do you think that when someone's coming here with their dollars, we figure out how to make it make sense?
Well, that's what we try to do is figure out how to make it make sense. And being a guy that's done several deals, I look for ways to put a deal together, not a way to turn it down or hinder it. So in other words, if you're a developer and you want to put a big deal in here, and we say, well, you can't, you got to have a retaining wall, 600 yards, and retaining wall, and let's look for a way to do it. Let's look for a way to figure out how to get that guy in our city, not a way to run him off.
Right.
And so many times I see deals get ran off. They run them off in there because they're not conducive to business. We've got to be business minded because business is jobs and business is tax dollars. And our port out here does a wonderful job. Our port does a wonderful job.
People forget about Little Rock having that port and being such a major intersection for transit.
You got rail, you got trucking, you got water, we got everything out there. And Brian Day does a great job out there, and he's got it up and going, and we've got some more property out there to develop, and we just need to be a developer, but you got to have a product. You know that by selling.
Well, it's actually the first lesson I ever learned in entrepreneurship. Yeah.
You talked about your Toyota a while ago. Toyota has a product, and it was easy to sell Toyotas because they had a product. And right now our product is fear, danger, uncertainty. When our city tried to pass a $500 million tax in the middle of a pandemic, our mayor pushed a $500 million tax in the middle of a pandemic. That would have been $53 million a year for 10 years on the people, tax dollars on the people of this city. And Jamie, right now we got people that can't even get their kids to school. We got people now that can't even buy gas for their car. I know that. I've been on both sides of that deal. I understand those people and I understand their problems. And so why tax them that kind of money for that long? You know what I mean?
Well, and we're just in a period of time, truly in American life, that it is difficult. And I can say from a single parent standpoint that it's difficult to raise two kids,
Absolutely.
Especially when you just have that one income.
Absolutely.
And you really, things keep getting more expensive and then time keeps passing and you're going am I going to make it?
Right.
But that being said, we are actually sitting inside of a great business here in Little Rock that has been a good representation of what can happen in a community when a great idea is empowered and then supported.
Yes.
So with respect to companies like Apogee, the Venture Center, as far as all of that goes in Little Rock, how do we foster that kind of environment to produce things like that? How do we continue to bring entrepreneurship, energy, excitement, and people to Little Rock in order to grow their brand and build their big company?
I was out in Southern California one time looking at some of these tech places. And when you go in, it's like this. You go in, they got, different groups of people working all over the buildings, but they're ideas, they're thinkers, they're innovators, they're new minds, So you learn a lot, from those people, and these are good. This is a great place. I mean, this is exciting because I see the same thing here I saw in those big tech places that I go into.
Well, it was interesting. There's a guy here who started a couple of days ago. We had a conversation around how he had moved here from Austin.
Mhm.
And this brings me to my point about growth and things as it relates to what if it happens too quickly? Because one of the things he mentioned about moving from Austin to Little Rock is he had come here to visit and he said, wow, access and opportunity are so available in this city. Where I'm from, it's very difficult. It's oversaturated. I don't have the opportunity to shine in that market. And so
Right.
he found himself moving here despite all of the negativity and some of the press that you see around Little Rock, because he did see some of those strengths of the ability to have like the global financial technology. We feed the world with rice. We're the number one intersection for
Right.
transit. Seeing all those things and then moving here, how do we get more people like that to come here and say, okay, I want to be part of it? Because his big complaint was Austin had a bunch of boil orders and blackouts, and because they had tried to grow
Yeah.
so quickly without addressing the infrastructure.
Well, of course, the infrastructure, the ARPA money that we get from the government. I think Conway got $12 million. They invested every bit of their money back into Conway's infrastructure and the building of Conway. We get 38 million, and we were just shooting it every which way. We were putting several $1 million out for community to teach us how to get these kids out of what they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got that money a year ago when we filed for the mayor said we were making Little Rock state of emergency. He's only put 150,000 of that money to work. The rest of it's just sitting stagnant. So when you say the numbers, that he really says, he's spinning numbers. He makes it where it sounds good to you. But if you want to know true numbers, and he's a much better speaker than I am. He's a much better, smoother talker than I am. But I'm a guy that'll get it done, and we'll get it done the right way, and we'll listen to the directors, the city managers, to everybody involved. I'll work with them collaboratively to get something done, not just spin numbers so people get confused.
Well, when it comes down to the mayor in that position, you're
Mhm.
essentially the person who's carrying our brand, right? You're the
Yes.
person who across the nation, people are going to look at Little Rock, they're going to look at that
Right.
mayor, and they're going to associate that mayor's values and how he operates with the remainder of that city. And so with respect to that, if you think about, okay, Little Rock looking at Steve Landers and saying, okay, he's our mayor, what do you think your greatest strength is going to be? Because as you start talking about your candidates and your opponents, you are a businessman, as you mentioned,
Right.
you're not a politician. So how does that separate you and make you the better candidate?
Well, if you see, I've made every mistake, Jamie, that you could possibly make in 50 years. I learned from those mistakes.
It actually sounds like we should have a competition.
Yeah, I've learned from those mistakes, and I will call my grandson sometimes. I'll say, "Look, I've already made that mistake. Don't make it. I've made it for you."
Well, let me help you there.
All right.
Don't make that mistake. They don't listen. No,
Well, that's
just
true.
kidding.
Because when he
Just
turned
kidding.
15 years old, I told my wife to sell all the books. He's learned everything.
He's learned it all.
He's learned it all.
You know,
So
my 15-year-old and him should get together. Then
yeah,
they could
that's
maybe
right. Yeah,
start
well,
the
he's
whole
18
thing.
now, and it doesn't get a lot better. So.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jamie Taylor, host of the Block Talk podcast. These mayoral interviews wouldn't have been possible without the gracious support of our sponsor. When you build a property with Mike Orndorff Properties, what you can expect is development done differently. This is a developer who connects people to their places and creates a space where you can live simply. If you want more information, check him out on Facebook.
I think the reason I stand apart is I've built morale every day in my life and my business. That's what we did. That's what I had to do, keep the morale up at our businesses because we were a retail business.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how to get morale up, and I know how to support the people that work for the city. I know when they're not making enough money or they're making, or they're, frankly, I went down to the garbage haulers union, been down there 5 times. Nobody from the city's ever been down there.
I didn't even know there was a garbage haulers union.
Well,
it's
not the garbage haulers union, but the guys hauling the trash work there. And I went in there and I listened to them and I started asking them what I could do to be better. They said, Steve, we're making $11 an hour. We can't feed our families. We can't pay our insurance deductible. So I started online talking about it. Well, finally the city gives them a raise to $15 an hour. But you give them a $4 raise on the 8.5% inflation, it still kind of eats it up. And so we've got to work, have our concerns of our people, our city employees, we have a big shop that runs takes care of all the vehicles in the city. Who knows more about running a shop than a car guy?
That's funny. That's actually really funny.
So I will help. We got a great guy down there, Willie Hinton down there. He does a great job. But I've learned those things over 50 years that I can say, hey, let's try this. I think it works.
Well, and with respect to that, the comment that you just made actually makes me want to ask that question of something that you should have a lot of knowledge about, but private and public partnerships, right? So how do private corporations help with public projects? And is it something you've experienced with Landers Group in the past? Have people come to you and said, hey, I want some money for this. Can you help with it?
Yes.
Talk to me about public-private partnerships, and do we need more of them?
So right now, another thing that will attract the people we were talking a while ago, it will attract the people is recreation. We have the worst recreation for people probably in the state. As far as the size of our city, if not probably the worst in the state. We have parks that are not been taken care of. Their equipment is all broke in them. They're not mowed. They're not cleaned up. They've got some kind of funk running through the parks in the creeks. I don't know. It's just really bad. If you go around and look at our parks, and I said one day, we got 63 parks. Maybe we need 40 or 50. And try to make the ones that we got really good.
Yeah.
Well, everybody starts saying, well, he wants to close parks. I don't want to close parks. I want parks that are good for everyone. Pickleball, basketball, food trucks, dog parks, bike trails.
I hate pickleball.
Yeah,
all the rest of that sounds fun.
But bike trails and that golf where you throw a Frisbee. I'm not going to do all that. But
the only kind of golf I'm going to do.
I know that people want to do those things.
Right.
So we've got a treasure in War Memorial Park sitting vacant in the middle of this city. We got 195 acres sitting vacant down there in the middle of the city. We do good to keep it mowed. So we need to turn it into something that's attractive for all types of people, whether it be golf, whether it be pickleball, whether it be basketball, whatever it is, we'll find something for everybody down there. So those are things I think will attract those people into our city. Go to North Little Rock and look at North Little Rock. They got more things to do. Do you know how much baseball would bring revenue to I'm talking about baseball. I'm talking about children's baseball. 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14-year-old kids. It would bring a ton of tax dollars to this city, and we have nothing for them. Nothing.
Well, and this is a total, just so everybody knows, I did have a list of questions set out, and this is not on that list, but you just mentioned recreation, and I immediately started thinking about War Memorial and the Little Rock Rangers, and how, I've had the guest or the owner of that soccer organization on the Block Talk before, and we've had a conversation about soccer being the most popular sport in the world. We have an incredible organization here that's built in a USL2 team, which is pretty high up there. I think my soccer friends probably know better than I do, but the idea is that they're getting 4,000 and 5,000 and 6,000 people out there at War Memorial watching those games all the time. And we're talking about a group of guys who decided to start a soccer club hanging out at Burns Park one day. And so when you look at something like that and the rapid nature in which it can grow, where's the MLS team? I think, could we think about
how big is soccer in the city? It's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's big, and we just don't do enough. We need to have teams. You got different groups of people, maybe better at soccer than some groups, but they need to play together so they learn, to all be good at soccer. And baseball, football, soccer, volleyball. We need things for everyone to do, so everyone has everyone's in the city, and everyone pays taxes in the city. We need things for everyone to do.
Well, with respect to that, just the visionary question about the path that you and your administration would like to take.
Yeah.
Tell me what you would want Little Rock to look like if you had the choice to, well, not the choice, but if you win the election and if you have the ability to operate this city as you would a business or a city, what is your vision? What do you want to see, 2 years after you take office and you're walking through Little Rock? What are the things that are most exciting for you to think about?
And, I want to have things for people to do. I want to have a safe city. First thing is, job one for me is a safe city, because everywhere I go, everybody I talk to knows that our city is not safe, and so I want to get a safe city. And so I won't be the one getting a safe city. I will get the right police chief in hired to take our city to another level. We had so much controversy on our last police chief, and so let's get the right guy. Let's get a guy that knows Little Rock, that's in the department, that understands the city, We don't have to go off out of state to find somebody. Let's find somebody here. And so that's what I will do.
Well, and speaking of officers, the LRPD, we have had quite a bit of trouble obtaining and retaining officers to our force. There's been some struggle with that. We have, as you mentioned, a number of vacancies. How do we get, and I don't know, I mean, obviously we're not exactly the same age, but we're close enough to know that in growing up, being a police officer used to be a very revered position within the community. And over time, there's been some things that have changed that perception. How do you feel is the best way for an administration to get itself wrapped around this policing issue and find a solution, not just to create the right chief who's going to train that staff, but also how do we get people wanting to be police officers again? Because I will tell you this, I'm not calling. If you call 911, Jamie's not coming because I'm terrified of most of those situations.
Right,
so it takes a very special kind of person.
It does take a special person. And 911 has been a problem here in our city also. You brought up 911, it just got me off on that. I've had people call me and say, Steve, I've called 911, they never answered. I've called 911, it took 15 rings for them to answer. And I've heard that over and over and over again. When I had the auto business, I required the people that answered the phone to answer it by the third ring. And answer it with a smile on their face. Thanks for calling Steve Landers Toyota. This is Connie. How may I direct your call? But have a smile on your face so the people can sense that smile through the phone. And if they didn't do that, I called the number, and I did a lot. I'd call and they'd wait, let it ring 6 times. I'd say, look, you got to answer it quicker than that. And I said, then you got to answer it with a smile on your face. So I would tell them that when I would call myself. But they got to be trained to do that. Our 911 needs to be trained to answer that call quickly because it's an emergency and somebody on the other end needs help. Mm-hmm. And I've not seen really anybody that doesn't want police. We got to have police, but we got to have them. And the police need to be trained properly. And so if you stop somebody that's a little young girl that's got 4 kids in her car and she's going 10 miles over the speed limit, you stop her and you say, ma'am, look, I'm going to write you a warning. Because I know I can see you don't need a ticket right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to write you a warning. Now, it's going to be in the system. So if you get another speeding stop, they're going to probably write you a ticket. Mm-hmm. But you're giving that person a break that needs a break. And if you catch some retired lady or man running a red light, running a stop sign, pull them over, write them a warning, because a lot of those people make $700 or $800 a month, in Social Security, and that's all the money they've got. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to go after those. But when you see somebody going 120 miles an hour down Asher or 120 miles an hour down University or Cantrell or any street in this city or down through the middle of Little Rock, then I think it's a different ballgame. It's a different ballgame.
As it relates to our police and their jobs, there are neighboring communities around us that also handle the structure of their police departments a little bit differently. Currently, I believe we have a $10,000 signing bonus for all police, and recently they did receive a 2% increase from the city raise. But we're still struggling in comparison to the other police forces around us to obtain and then hold on to the officers that we have. Is there something that you think we could do as a city to make it more attractive as a position for a police officer?
You can go online and see what the Fraternal Order of Police,
the FOP,
came out this week and said as far as being backed by anybody. They don't feel backed by anyone. And these are the people that protect everybody in this city. They don't feel like anybody's got their back, I will have their back, and I will have the fireman's back, and make sure that we have the right equipment and equipment that works, and make sure that we have, we're not working on 80 hours a week or 70 hours, because of the shortage of patrolmen.
Well, the last thing we need is tired police officers.
Yeah, and right now we have some tired police officers because they are working overtime. That's another thing, Jamie, that, if our city's so safe, why would the mayor spend over $2 million of city taxpayer dollars for personal security for himself? I don't have personal security. You don't have personal security. And so why would he spend over $2 million since he's been in on personal security? Because our city is not safe. So if he says it's as safe as it is, then give up that $2 million worth of security of taxpayers' money.
Well, and that's one of those things that you said you'd come right in and start working on.
Immediately.
Right?
I mean, no, day one.
Yeah.
I will I will give up that $2 million worth of security.
Is it a big, huge change for you already, having gone from being an entrepreneur and a businessman and then going to retirement and then deciding to do this? Because as I understand it, you want the city to look different, feel different, and you want to have an opportunity to help with that. How different has that been? Just out of curiosity, to go from the business world to the politics world. I know from entrepreneur to intrapreneur has been quite a journey. So I can't imagine what this must be like.
Well, the big thing about running for office, people try to put you in this corner as Democrat or this corner as a Republican. I've never been that guy. I've just voted for the person I think would do the best job, which has been on both sides. Politics is different. It's very different. I hate politics.
Same.
I hate politics. I'm not a politician. You know what I mean? But you can call me because I put my cell number out to everybody in this city during this campaign. I've given everybody my cell number. If they need to talk to me as a mayor, they can call me. They don't have to wait 6 weeks to get in and see me. I'm not going to have 20 plus people in my executive staff. No mayor's ever had a credit card until this one. And, I don't need a credit card. My credit card will be, I'll use my credit card if I have city's expenses. I'll write down what it's for, and I'm going to put it online and post it every month. So I'll be transparent with taxpayers' money. That will be posted each month so people can see, hey, this is what the mayor spent on a dinner, or this is, and it'll all be posted on there. And just that's been a big problem where city's lack of transparency. When you shuffle the numbers around and make it look like, yes, crime's down in larceny and home burglaries. Why is it down, Jamie? Why would you think it's down in that?
In larceny and home burglaries?
Yeah.
Because it's probably harder to get to low violent crimes when you don't have as many police on the staff, right? So they're probably handling like homicides or murders.
The reason it's down for the last two or 3 years is because COVID, people were sitting in their houses in their easy chairs watching television, and it's hard to go burglarize his house when he's sitting in there.
That's actually very true. I didn't think about that.
So homicides are up. Our homicides right now, we're sitting on 56 homicides as of today. We're tracking for an all-time high. We're 25% higher than we were last year, and last year was a terrible year in our city. Homicides are up 25%. Forcible rapes are down. I'll give them that. They're down because people can't go in somebody's house because their husband's standing there. You see, or sitting in his easy chair. So it's down. Those are down. We've got kids killing kids. We got kids killing kids, and it's dangerous to go out at night. It's dangerous to go on the streets. It's dangerous. I wouldn't even let my grandson go out he's a grown man. He's 18 years old. I won't even let him go out when he's at my house. He lives out of state. When he comes in, I said, look, I want you home at dark. Be home at dark. Well, I'm grown, he says. And I said, I don't care if you're grown or not. Be home at dark. You know what I mean? I want you home. You can get mad at me if you want to, but I don't want you shot. And that's what I worry about for everyone. And it's not just, it's all over the city. It's pockets all over the city where gun violence is just pull up beside a car and start shooting bullets in it and don't have a clue who's inside. Babies strapped in car seats. I have been in service stations where a lady was getting carjacked at the service station. And if I hadn't been sitting outside in my truck while a young man that was with us was getting us a drink, a Coke inside, I'm sitting out there, and the guy, I see him, and she sees him, and her eyes were big around his quarters, $50. And when the guy started rushing her, I opened my door, and I said, leave her alone, real loud. I yelled at him, and he ran off. And she came with me and said, thank you so much. I was so scared. And I said, I could see that you were scared, and I could see what he was doing, but he was trying to carjack her. So it's not safe. And for the people out there, be aware of your surroundings when you're out. Be aware of your surroundings. And so that's what I got to say to that. But proper trained, which we do a good job with our training for what we got, but do we have the equipment? You know what I mean? So we're training these guys, but we've got to train them on and get more of them. And I will get more of them. I used to recruit to get salesmen at my dealerships.
Well, it's kind of funny, though, because you have built a lot of companies and hired and fired a lot of people. And so it's one of those situations where you have dealt with putting leaders in place and then watching sometimes what happens with culture. I know for me, too, I've had employees or in the past owned a business where it's like one employee can really create a whole issue in your culture. And it can be very difficult to address that issue without completely removing that from the place. And so it's interesting to hear and have this conversation with you because, like you mentioned, you're not a politician. The city, although this is a political race and although it is a campaign, the city is much like a company when you look at it. You've got leadership,
2,500 employees.
Well, and here's the big thing for me. I know we've talked about some of the negativity and that, yes, we have a lot of things to deal with in Little Rock as far as opportunities to improve. But this is the greatest place for me, coming from Southern California.
Absolutely.
Sure. There's a lot of great things in Southern California. There were a lot of things in Vegas when I was there for a few years.
Yeah.
But here in Arkansas, you're talking about being the number one area of transit. You're talking about being, training most of the healthcare professionals in the United States. You're feeding the world with the rice. You've got the Venture Center, FinTech, all these great companies coming out of here. What do you think are the greatest strengths, and the positivities that Little Rock has to offer, barring all of the other things that we've kind of talked about so far?
We got good people. And I'm talking about all kinds of people are good people. All races of people are good people. And what we do is we got to find those few bad eggs and get them out of the city. Get them. There's a few bad eggs. There was going to be anytime you have an event, you stand a chance of having violence and stuff at those events, but it's only by a handful of people. It's just a small amount of people, and they hurt everybody else's ability to enjoy life. And so we got to find those guys. You know what I mean? And because they're out there, and we got to find them. And we have a drug issue in Little Rock, and the drug problem is fentanyl killing kids. Fentanyl is killing kids. Okay, so I know that these kids that are standing on the corner selling drugs don't make fentanyl. They don't make it. They don't make those pills. They're getting sent here by somebody. We got to find the person that's getting them sent to him and get him out of the city and not have those in our city, because they're killing kids that don't. 2 grains of salt can kill you. Of fentanyl, and it's 100 times more powerful than heroin, morphine. That's 100 times more powerful. And so people are dying from that, and we need to find the person that's bringing that to our city, and we can do that.
How do you feel about that? When you start saying fentanyl, my mind went to the place where, we do have the highest rate of drug addicted children. And there's a lot of really positive things going on in our education system, but a lot of really negatives. We're at 48 as it relates to teacher pay. We have a high rate of addicted children, like you're talking about. We don't have a recovery high school. We don't have sort of any initiative towards that kind of thing. What sort of vision do you have for the future of Little Rock as it relates to helping those kids and or those people who, if they're in a desperate situation, I have made desperate decisions when I've been in desperate situations. So I understand if you're in a desperate situation, there's an opportunity for you to make a desperate decision. And if you're hungry, you might steal from the grocery store. If you were, dealing with some sort of addiction, you don't know how to get around that, you might continue down that same path of behavior. What kind of vision do you have to repair those sort of damaging issues that can last a generation?
I have 200 jobs available, not from me, but from companies that I've talked to that come to me and say, Steve, we'll take 100 employees. $23 minimum hour, up to $30 in 6 months. Okay, that's good money. And some of these kids that are selling drugs, they're selling drugs because they want to feed their mother, their 2 brothers, and they're doing it out of necessity. Let's give them an opportunity to get a job and train them on a job that they can be their own entrepreneur and run their own business someday. And I want to put those things in where because not everybody's made for college.
I wasn't.
I wasn't made for college, but my brother was. He was a pharmacist and did it, but I wasn't made for college. I was made different, and so, but we got to teach these young kids how to make a living without doing what they're grasping whatever they can grasp to feed their mother, their 2 brothers, their sister, and get them to school and all that. So I understand that. If I had a brother who was hungry, sister was hungry, everybody, I'd do the same thing. I do whatever I could to help.
Right.
And so we've got to give them something to do. And that's the things that I want to do. I've got 200 jobs available right now. And that's been in just this little length of time I've been talking about this. I want to create a great place where people can get jobs, good paying jobs, that they don't have to do some of these things.
Yep. So as it relates to good paying jobs and then a spirit of entrepreneurship, as you mentioned, there is actually a bit of, in my own opinion, because I've worked quite a bit in the Southwest Little Rock area of our city and in many other areas of our city where our Hispanic populations and our other race populations are quite different than we've seen historically. And the census has changed with additional, many more Hispanics joining the fabric of our community. What I've noted most, I guess obviously, is that in these businesses wanting to be taxed by the city because they are trying to do business in the city, they have a very difficult time communicating back and forth with our city because none of the resources that are available to build a business are available in any other language than English. And I only know that because I worked through that experience personally. And so as I saw that started to take place, I thought, how do we make this city more inclusive to where if I'm Hispanic or not, if my business is going to be taxed by the city, shouldn't I have the ability to apply for that license in my language?
Yeah, and I agree, Jamie, that they've got a card. It's a citizen's card or whatever it is. And so many of them, the Hispanics, so many of them are afraid to go in to even talk to anybody. You know what I mean? About, hey, how can I figure out a path to pay taxes, to get a business, to get citizenship? I want to show them a path. I want somebody that talks in their language and that can show them a path and work with them anytime they need help. Because it would be, just think about this. If I was dropped in Guadalajara, Mexico, I wouldn't even know how to get a cab. So, I wouldn't even know what to say to get a cab. So they feel the same way. They don't know what to say or who to go to.
Yo necesito un taxi.
Right. Okay.
Por favor.
I don't know that.
But that's the thing is, it's so important, at least in my opinion, that, we talk about being an inclusive city and we want to be the city where everyone can succeed and we want them to pay taxes and get along with code enforcement and understand the differences in policing in Latin America versus the United States. But we've made none of those resources available. And so how can we expect the city to have unification when we can't all get the same message to all of our residents?
Yeah. And 100% agree. I know how tough it is on some of the Hispanic people, and I spent a lot of time with them, and I understand them, and I'm for getting them to figure out a way, a path. Everybody were immigrants at one time. We're here, they're here. Let's get them in the workforce. Frankly, the ones that were legal to work, that worked for us in the auto business, were the best workers that we had. They were on time. They came out there, they did their job, and all that. So let's get them where they can pay taxes, where they can invest in our city, with their work. So
I look at that from two directions. I'm like, let's empower them to have the same experience in entrepreneurship because I don't want to be miserable alone. No, I'm just kidding. But it is one of those things where I remember the struggles of running a business and paying taxes and those things. And I think, if somebody tried to tell me that in Spanish, even as much as I've learned, I wouldn't know how to do it. So,
the biggest thing, and I've got a master's degree I don't have a master's degree from college, but I got one in common sense because I've ran my businesses for 50 years with common sense, trying to make the right decision. Now, I've made so many errors over the 50 years that I learned so much. It's how I got a master's degree, because I made enough mistakes to give me a master's degree. But common sense, think about it, just sit down, collaborate with the directors, collaborate with the city manager, collaborate with the citizens of our city. Let them come to me. You want to talk to me? Dial me. And tell me what's going on. And that's the only way we can make things better. That's the only thing we can fix things. The only way we can fix things. So.
Well, one of the last questions I have is, this is not an easy thing to do, as we discussed. Okay. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier having lost a son, you faced some great tragedy in your life as it is.
Yes.
So maybe this isn't as difficult as some of those things, but on those really hard days when it's like, oh, I decided to run for mayor, I'm a politician now. What keeps you motivated to keep going and to stay in this race despite the challenges it will continue to present to you?
Losing a son was tough. Toughest thing I've ever done in my life. But when that little 7-year-old girl got shot going to the zoo, it was like I got a shot of adrenaline to push harder to get in this office, to protect those that can't protect themselves, to be a voice for people that can't speak for themselves. I can do that as good as anybody down there. Am I the best group speaker? No. But I can advocate for people that can't help themselves. I've done my life. I'm in the auto business. I've retired. It was fine. To my wife got telling me to do this. So,
Mrs. Landers, you pushed him out of retirement.
Yeah, so she pushed me right back into work. But I'm healthier. I've lost about 50 pounds. I've been working out all week. I've been working out. I'm in good shape. I'm ready to go. Went to the Mayo Clinic, got a complete physical checkup. They said, the guy said I was perfect. And I said, let's go. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because I've made tough decisions, and I've made hard decisions, and I have led people, and I have built teams. And we got to build a team. I can't do this. We led the world. My Dodge Chrysler Jeep store, we led the world in the 90s in Dodge Chrysler Jeep sales. The world. That wasn't me. I was a good car guy, but I had built a team of good people and had confidence in them and let them do their jobs, and just guided them. When they hit the wall, I'd pull them off, But building teams is important. We got to build, our city's got to be a team. All of us have to work together. Everybody here has to work together to make Little Rock a successful place again. And we can do that. Little Rock's not gone, but I've got a deal here the other day that showed the top 5 cities in the country with violent crime, and we're per capita, and we're one of those, and that's not what we want to be known for. But if you're in Austin, Texas, and they're saying we're going to move to Little Rock, Arkansas, or Raleigh, North Carolina, what's the first thing you're going to do is go get online. You're going to go pull it up, and you're going to say, I don't want to go to Little Rock. I don't want to go to Little Rock. I don't want my kids in that school system. I don't want a job there. I don't want to have to worry about going out at night to have a cup of coffee or eat or whatever. And so we can do better. We will do better. We got to have the courage to change what we're doing. If you're better off now than you were 3.5, 4 years ago, then maybe I'm not your guy. But if you feel like that it's time for a change, have the courage to make that change. Have the courage to make that change. And I'll be the one to make it too. I need your votes.
Well, and thank you for tying that up so nicely, because the next question I actually had for you was, where can people find out more about your campaign if they're in a situation where they haven't researched you and they're watching the Block Talk podcast, which aims to add value to the block of their time? If they want to find Steve Landers, where do they find you?
They can go to Steve Landers for mayor, or landersformayor.com, but go online and follow us, or call me on my cell phone. I'll tell you, I'll talk to you, or you can come into my office and we'll sit down and talk about whatever you want to talk about.
All right. Well, that sounds good to me. And I'll let you guys know how that 4Runner deal turns out.
Okay.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yes, sir. All right, Little Rock, we're out.